All right. Hi, good morning, class and fellow criminal justice peers. My name is Crystal, and today I'm going to be talking about two cases that I read in Chapter 8. So, the first case I'm going to talk about is Lynham versus Illinois in 1963. So, basically, to sum this case up, Lynham versus Illinois was to the case was essentially about coerced confessions. So what happened in this matter was that policemen, there were policemen that intimidated a lady. They threatened her, and they told her that she would lose her children if she did not cooperate with them. And through them doing this, they were able to coerce a confession out of them. Now, whether the confession was true, whether it was false, it's hard to determine because she was threatened. You know, when somebody's kids are put in the question or someone's livelihood, people are willing to sacrifice or, bend the rules to make sure their kids are safe or whatever being threatened is safe. So therefore it takes away the it takes away from like it being fair and just and constitutional because the confession was coerced ultimately. So confessions should usually be free from government pressure or any kind of, feeling of I must do this. So I feel as though this case was I feel as though for this case, I'm glad that I'm glad that the courts ruled in the lady's favor. That's how I think, because I feel as though for you to threaten me to receive a confession out of me, that says a lot. So the second case is Schmerber versus California in 1966. And this case was about another case about self-incrimination. So for this case, the Supreme Court took a blood sample from a DUI suspect without their consent. However, this did not violate I don't think this violates the Constitution. And it didn't, because the courts ruled against the suspect. But the ruling basically limited the standards of what police can do and what they can take when it comes to such circumstances, like what kind of evidence they should be able to extract. And so in this situation, because the suspect was, it was to be thought that she was drinking under the influence, it gave probable cause for them to take her samples. So yeah, she argues that they were not allowed to do that under the Fifth Amendment because it's it's self-incrimination, but with reasonable doubt you can. So I feel like the parallels between these two cases, because they both have to do with self-incrimination, which you can or can't say or anything like that. I think this all ties into like knowing your Miranda rights and making sure that the government is doing everything they can to uphold that, and making sure you know them helps you not fall victim to such, societal or governmental pressures. So basically, I feel as though together, both the cases address that during criminal investigations, what the government can or cannot do to get information out of you. I think that Lynham, the first case, focuses kind of on protecting the voluntariness of statements and, making sure that it's free and voluntary and not coerced. Meanwhile, the Schmerber case addresses the limits of the self-incrimination process, establishing that physical evidence can sometimes be taken without violating any constitutional rights under certain under certain limitations and stuff. Like, for example, if someone suspects that you're driving under the influence, that's reasonable doubt to take, a blood sample to see if so. And honestly, I feel as though if you were not driving under the influence, then you have nothing to be scared of, Like, you should even say, yeah, take my blood sample. So I feel like for the suspect to say that it was a violation of rights, I don't think that it was. And I think that they're wrong. And I think that, yeah, like, there is like self-incrimination to an extent. And so I feel like together, both the cases, they kind of tackle at individual rights with law enforcement needs, trying to basically shape modern day investigation and interrogation procedures, and how people collect evidence, what kind of evidence they can and can't collect, and under what circumstance. I think both of these cases, they kind of just brought light and shed light to the Fifth Amendment, they shed light to the Fifth Amendment and also just the self-incrimination process and Miranda rights. And I think both these cases being very close, the Lynham case being in 1963 and the Schmerber case being in 1966. Because they're so close together, I feel like, they stand out, and yeah, they help show why, it's important to know your rights. It's important to, know your rights. So one, you are not coerced, and two, you're aware that, with reasonable doubt, things can be taken from you. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening.